Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining me. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to open the Akashic Records, and I'm going to be teaching you what to do once you're there. And before I get into that information, I want to let you know that my semi-annual sale right now is running until the end of the month. If you've been looking to open the records with me, now would be a great opportunity to do that. If you've had a session with me recently, you can book as far in advance as you want to, so you can take advantage of the lower price and get your booking. So this video is inspired by some new things that I've been doing in the Akashic Records, and like I've said many times, my work, my experience in the Akashic Records is just about that experience. It's not always about what we learn. It's not always about the education and the teachers and the masters and the awareness. To me, it is often about experiencing, it's often about having fun, and it is also about remembering what's available within that inner world and the field of potential that most of you can access. When we focus our intention to open the records, the actions that we take, the rituals that we use, all of those things are just basically to focus your intention. There's no keyword, there's no phrase, there's no even a vibrational state that's going to allow you access to the space. I've opened the records in my lowest points. I've been denied opening the records in my highest points. So there's kind of like a sweet spot that you're looking to create with your intention. And so I'm going to quickly go through what has worked for me. More of my focus in this video is what to do once you're in the Akash after you've set the intention to open. But let's say we want to open the Akashic Records, we find sacred time, sacred space. Those things are really important to establish because it helps your subconscious understand that there's something significant that's about to occur, and maybe we should plan and prepare for that. So I've got my sacred time, I've got my sacred space, I've found my voice. I am then going to use sacred Om to communicate to unconscious pieces and parts that we are opening the Akashic Records and that they should stand down from their kind of linear separation objectives. So sacred time, sacred space, find my breath. I usually put my hand on my heart like this, and I'll tap the heart. With this Om, dear ego, step aside. Om. With this Om, dear body, be still. Om. With this Om, I call in the light. Om. With this Om, I open the Akashic Records. Om. So when we go through this ritual, there's like a checklist of things that we need to talk to and to get on board with what we're doing. And basically my process is now, I tailor my opening ritual depending on how I'm feeling in whatever day it is. So if I feel like my ego is a little bit louder, I'll talk to the ego for sure. If I feel like my body is having trouble being still, I'll talk to the body for sure. If I feel like I'm not connected to the higher self like I should be, I'll ask the higher self to come forward, and I'll use my focused intention to do that. If anything, you need to find love and joy and gratitude and appreciation above all else. And there's a lot of times now in session where I won't even do the ritual. I just have to kind of set the intention in my mind, open the Akashic Records, and I start getting information from the source. More and more in the Akashic Records, when I get to that threshold I'm going to open now, the records itself will come forward and will ask me, you need to find love in your heart. The records will come forward and say, think about something joyful. Remember this moment you fell in love. Remember this time where this thing happened. Remember this good luck. So there's kind of a dynamic that's been established with the Akashic Records that gauges my compatibility for me. And this comes through experience and repetition. So what I'll do is I'll find my love, I'll go into the space, I'll observe the visuals, I'll temper my excitement and all of that stuff. And the things that I'm about to teach you next, some of you are going to run with and never look back. Some of you might have, like we talked about, linear pieces and parts take away the significance of this information as you absorb it. I want you to identify those pieces and parts right now and take this as an opportunity to communicate to them. We're looking for more positive, constructive feedback. We're looking for reception of information that is outside of survival and limitation. So this is a good time in opening the Akashic Records to identify those pieces and parts that are not on board, because they'll contribute to your consciousness. This is weird, this is different, you're not doing it right, you don't know how, what's the point of this? It's not going to work for you. Why would you try? Find your love, communicate to those pieces and parts with you that are their own individual thing. We're more invested in our curiosity right now. Thank you very much. So when I started to open the Akashic Records, I was, at the starting point, like a lot of you. I would do the ritual, I would go through the motions, I would do the practice, I would implement the techniques. And I spent 2 months, 3 months doing this, just going through the motions, having to stick with it because I paid for the course and for the teacher who taught me these things. As I continued to invest in these disciplines, I didn't know this, but I was gaining vibrational compatibility because of the discipline and because of the consistency. Until one day I go through the opening ritual, I start practicing my visuals like I'm going to teach you here and like I still do today. But this time, instead of creating the visual and having to hold and structure the visual, it was just already there. You don't have to create anything. You don't have to envision anything. You just close your eyes, go into the space, observe the signs and symbols, greet the masters, ask questions, gain access to different memories, imprints, archetypes. It really is the field of infinite potential. So there's infinite potential with what can be created for you there, and there's infinite potential with what you can create within the space. So a lot of the beginning is going to be invested in, and a lot of you need to really reframe the way that you receive this word. A lot of what you do in the beginning is going to be pretend. But we need to remember that our inner world is a creation engine. It is a tool for us to build. It is a utility that is meant to be implemented in this place and elsewhere. So we go through the opening ritual. We have aligned with the energies of the Akashic Records. Now we start focusing on immersing our senses there. And the reason that we're immersing our senses there, because when I go into a past life, I've got to have my senses on board with what I'm observing. I need to have my physical senses immersed in the space so that I can navigate the space and so that I can hold my focus and awareness there thoroughly. So if that word pretend really just triggered you, that is likely the ego that you've just triggered, who's told you that there's limitation that's meant to be observed here. Why are you not adhering to it? Why are you moving outside of the construct and the paradigm of limitation that we've served to you on a platter all this time? It's easier, it's more comfortable. Let us move beyond those things, if not just for the curiosity and the investigation and what it might provide. So we go through the ritual, we find our space. Very first thing that you want to do is you want to create and tailor your own sacred space. You want to go in the Akashic Records and you want to build a garden or a great hall, a cathedral, a seat that you sit in. Because I'm a Cryon student, most of the time when I'm going into the Akashic Records, the very first stop is in the theater, the circle of the round. And within the circle, we have guides file into the circle. Sometimes there's a few of them, sometimes there's literally trillions. So what I will do is I will find my seat in the theater. I will focus on my breath. The air going in and out of my lungs, the oxygen coming and going from the bloodstream. I focus on my breath before I engage in anything visual. I find my breath because I know that if I find my breath, my body and soul are going to come into coherence with each other, and they're going to invest in aligning with the experience that I've looked for. Another thing that you want to do is you want to start creating sound. This is normally, to me, a soundless space unless I'm creating it, unless I'm accommodating exchanges that I need to pick up on. So I'll go into the Akashic Records and I'll start creating sound. I'll use my voice. And keep in mind, you don't want to use your real physical voice when you do this, because that's going to be like a crutch. We want to get familiar with using our intention to propel our voice within an etheric space in a way that is tangible and interactive in the space. So use your voice, scream, shout, yell, whatever it is that you do. Feel it ringing and echoing through the space, even if you have to simulate it and create that effect on your own. Your subconscious and your physical body don't know the difference between what you're creating and what's being created for you. So another thing that I will do when I'm looking for immersion is I will start walking. And walking is important because you really have to, when you have the intention to walk without legs, you have to focus one foot in front of the other, and we're looking to simulate our physical experience. So I start walking because usually when I'm walking, I have to focus myself, and when I'm focusing on one foot in front of the other, I'm not really getting captivated by the mind or kind of deterred by the mind and having to move past the mind to accomplish what it is that I'm trying to do. So I'll move one foot in front of the other, and I'll make sure that each step is with focused intention. And that is going to open a lot of, funnily enough, pathways for us. Another thing that's fun to do in the Akashic Records, if you're not kind of interested in the immersion aspect of it, I would open the Akashic Records and I would start reflecting immediately. I would start thinking about when I was a teenager. I would start thinking about when I was growing up. I would think about falling in love. I would think about friendships that I've had. I would think about moments in time where something happened that was good or bad. The opportunity for profound perspective altering reflection within the Akashic Records is very significant. And once we have like revelations within that process in the Akashic Records, that's the only place that we'll want to go to reflect. So it will be a tool and a companion that can help us see things that we've experienced from new angles and perspectives. This is one of the easier things to do, and one thing that can create resonance the quickest, I believe, because there's a lot of energy and imprints associated with experience and memories and emotions. So the next thing I might do, if I was you, I would focus on my sense of smell. And I'll accomplish this in a lot of different ways. I'll envision myself in maybe like a pasture. I know what a farm smells like. It's easy for me to simulate within the inner space. I might envision, or I might simulate the smell of bread cooking or a pie baking. I might simulate the smell of like fresh rain, summer air, wintertime when the heaters all kick on. Bring things into your awareness that are familiar to your physical self and simulate them in the Akashic Records so that you can gain traction, and so that your spiritual pieces and parts can start accommodating, bringing smells and sensations into your awareness that are not generated by you, and you don't encounter until it appears and you observe it. Oh, it's this. Another thing that I'm going to do in the Akashic Records is I'm going to focus my awareness on my hands. I'm going to look for things to touch. I'm going to look for textures. I'm going to look for different temperatures and sensations that I can kind of simulate with my body. When you go into the Akashic Records and you close your eyes and let's say you touch a textured wall, your physical self is going to simulate as if you're touching the textured wall, because your unconscious pieces and parts know that that is the true reality, not this illusion that you're pretending is. So when we go into those spaces and we use our sense of touch, there's a significant response from the physical body, because the physical body, kind of comes into the awareness, I'm doing something that I didn't know I was doing, but there's a sensation, there's a signal telling me to facilitate this sensation, I better do that. Whenever we observe that process or implement that process, it's usually a very prominent sensation that you're getting. So go into the records and start touching things, start using your hands, start sending energy with your hands. Start envisioning waves of energy from your intention leaving your hands and filling the void or the space or whatever location it is that you're in. You can also envision energy coming to you, waves of energy broadcasting to you that you're in reception of, and maybe there's sensations that go with that. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the new things that I've been doing, which I guess aren't actually new, but my discipline and like investment in pursuing the things is new and have been, like I said, partially why I've been given more autonomy in the records now. I feel like I'm able to focus myself and use my agency to go and to do. So this first one is scale manipulation. And scale manipulation is initially pretty hard, but when you work on the scale manipulation, the byproduct of it is it makes you feel so interesting. It's hard to put into words, but when you feel small next to something that you shouldn't feel small to, there's an interesting response that your physical self gets. When you feel large against, near something that you're supposed to be small to, next to, your physical body has all kinds of trouble like processing that. And I think that's the point. I think we're doing these exercises to trigger pieces and parts of us that may not necessarily have the reference to use to some of these things that we'll encounter in the records. So I've been using my sense of scale and shifting my sense of scale with my focused intention. So I'll do things like I'll observe a ball expanding till it's large and I'm basically like an ant beside it. I will observe really big things becoming really small and, I can basically pick up a building and hold it in the palm of my hand. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. I've also been doing this by like little things like visualizing my hand touching a doorknob, but for some reason the doorknob is really big, like it's a giant's doorknob. Or visualizing my hand reaching for a doorknob, and when my hand gets to the doorknob, it's absolutely tiny and hard to grab onto. Another thing that I have been doing in the Akashic Records are deprivation practice. So instead of going into the Akasha and envisioning myself in a field of abundance, surrounded by an orchards of trees that are, fully developed and ready to pick from, I will observe myself in a barren landscape, dry, hot, miserable, and I will sit within those conditions, feeling all of that discomfort, feeling the heat on my body, start getting too hot, start getting really thirsty, start sweating, start feeling dry and sticky. When you sit in that environment and you hold in your awareness, I'm in the desert, your physical self is supposed to contribute to that experience by simulating the sensations for you. Can't really do that if it doesn't have the opportunity. So what I'll do then is I will envision a drop of water hitting my face, and I will envision another one hitting. I will envision the smell of rain in the distance. I will be closing my eyes in those kind of defeating circumstances, thirsty in the desert. I'll hear thunder in the distance. I'll observe rain clouds forming. I'll observe myself, hot, feeling frustrated and depleted. Suddenly a storm cloud covers the sun, and I can relax. I can breathe. I can wait for the water, and I can, immerse myself in that water when it arrives to me. So we basically want to hold our focus while the rain falls. And by the way, if you're a shaman who's looking to put out forest fires or to temper hurricanes and all that stuff, this same approach is what is going to work for you. Going into the inner world, focusing on whatever the circumstances are on the surface, dissolving appropriately if that's what they're meant to do. Alrighty, I think that will do it for today. If you guys have questions about services and that kind of stuff, I would love to answer that for you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.